This is Damian Macy, representing the Friends of the Marshall Public Library, and I'm on an oral history project. Today is Wednesday, September the 14th of 2016, and I'm here at the library with Lois Smith. She's a resident of this area for many years, and at one time, I know it was in Martinsville, and she's been at Marshall now for a while. And I bet Lois has a story to tell us, a lot of stories probably. And with that, I'll introduce you to Lois Smith.
Okay. I was born on September the 17th, 1936, on what we called the Davison Farm in Dawson Township here in Clark County. My parents was Lloyd and Leila Eubank, and I was the first of my siblings to be born in Clark County. My parents had lived in Champaign County before moving to Clark County in 1935, I believe. There's 9 of us. We're a large family. I was number 6. We had Evelyn, Richard, Leila Bell, Mary Jo, Wayne, then me, Daryl, Carol Ann, and Karen. And it was fun having a large family. I like being a part of a large family.
Could even share the chores then too, couldn't you?
Yes, we did. My mom usually, when she would assign us to do something, it wasn't just one. Usually there was 2 would go do this, or maybe more than that. But very seldom did you have to do something by yourself. You usually had somebody to help you. And of course, you have fun while you're doing it too. My parents agreed that kids had to have fun. We worked hard, but they didn't care if we had fun along the way. And as a matter of fact, we used to sing a lot. Singing is one of them. I love to sing. And we sing while we was doing our chores. My mom she would sing on wash day. I don't remember my mom, she would always sing. And of course, wash day back in those days, we didn't have electricity, and we didn't have running water. We didn't have the bathroom. We had the outside pretty. And on wash days, first you had to pump all of that water and then put it into the stove. Well, in the summertime, she heated it outside, but carry it into the stove, heat it, then you put it in the wash machine. And she had an old a gas engine, I think it was, wringer type wash machine. And of course then you'd hang them out on the line. And once you got done with the washing, then you had to carry all that water out. And it was an all-day job to do the laundry.
Did the summertime, did you put the washing machine outside, or did it stay inside?
It was on the back porch, which was a screened-in back porch. But she would heat the water in an old galvanized tub out in the chicken yard. And so then you carried the water out there and then carried it in. But it wasn't that hot in the house then. And when I was real young, my mom still had, what do you call them, coal range to cook on, a cooking stove. You had to build a fire in it. Now, when I was just a little, I barely remember that stove. And then she got a one that's took kerosene, I think it was, a 3-burner coal oil. And she cooked on that for all of us. And but it was a nice childhood. We worked hard. We had worked in the garden, and we had all kinds of chores.
I was getting ready to ask, with 9 children, I'm sure you had a big garden.
Yes.
And there was not only a lot of food to prepare, but also a lot of clothes to wash, too.
Let me tell you. Yes, it was. A lot of clothes. But, we would help. And when it came to ironing time, Mom would make a pile for each one of us. And of course, we had this old, wasn't electric iron. It was kind of...
Is it a gas?
No, it was just an iron that you heated on the stove.
Okay.
Iron, I guess it was. I mean, they were heavy. And we started out learning how to iron by ironing the handkerchiefs. I did that first, and then you graduated up as you got older. Then you learned.
If you scorched one of those, it wasn't a disaster then.
No, it wasn't. You didn't. We didn't. Mom usually ironed the white shirts until we was adults, because you didn't want to.
Did you have some
overstep.
particular chores around home that was your responsibility?
Yes. My first chores I can remember was bringing in the coal and the wood, and would maybe feed the chickens, and also get the coal oil and fill the lamps, because of course we didn't have electricity.
Yeah.
That's some of the first that I remember, yes. We, like I say, we used to sing. We'd sing while we worked, and we'd listen to the radio, and we'd try to imitate the radio. Singing was a big thing of me when I was young. Me and my sister would sing. I even learned how to yodel. I can still yodel just a little bit, not much. I've kind of forgotten a lot of it. But then when I was a teenager in high school, there was 4 of us girls that went to the same church, and about 2 of us, Shirley and I, went to Martinsville. You may remember her. And the other 2 girls went to Marshall schools, but we all went to the same church. And we formed a quartet, and we sang around different churches, our churches, some of the community things. And singing was very, very important.
You sang out at the old North Center School community.
Yes, we did. Lots of times. Yeah.
In your living at home again with several children, did you have some particular dishes that your mother would make for you one week and another one the next week, or did whatever was on the table you ate?
Whatever Mom fixed, you ate. You didn't complain. You ate whatever was on the table, and you cleaned your plate. You didn't waste food. Of course, I was born in the middle of the Depression. We were lucky to have food. And we learned to eat. No matter whatever Mom fixed, we ate.
Did your dad farm?
Yes, he was a farmer. And well, that's another thing. We had cows, and that was another. As I got a little bit older, then I'd help milk the cows, and we'd milk several every morning before you go to school, and when you got home in the evening, you milked those cows again. There was no holidays and days off. You milked the cows. Actually, I guess the most I remember one year, because usually there was several of us there, so you didn't have that many that was that you were designated to milk. But one year, well, my brother was sick. He had rheumatic fever, and he wasn't able, and the other older sisters and brothers were away from home then. It was just me and my dad, because the younger ones were too young. And that particular school year, I milked 7 cows every morning before I got on the bus at 7 o'clock in the morning.
A lot of milking.
That was a lot of milking. And that was the most I remember. Usually it was around 3 or 4 cows that you milked.
Did your mother use all of that milk and butter, or did you sell some of it?
No, my dad sold the milk. And of course we had what we could use there. I mean, at home, we always had plenty of milk to use. But no, my dad sold milk. And So we always had the milk check coming in.
Did she make the butter that she used to? Or?
We did sometimes, yes. I've helped churn butter lots of times, yes. We would churn, not always, but we churned our own butter.
Just kind of geographically from here, where was that house and your farm located?
It was just off Clarksville Road on what is now Bluegrass Road. It was just about half a mile off the Clarksville Road. And
You did some shopping, obviously. Did that take you to Martinsville, or did you come into Marshall or Clarksville maybe?
my dad would go to the Clarksville General Store on Saturday night, and he would get the groceries and bring them home. Occasionally he'd come to Marshall for some things that we needed, but as far as getting the weekly groceries, my dad would go on Saturday night and he'd bring the groceries home. That from Clarksville, the general store there. And
So did they have, you say general store, they had some other things other than just groceries and food, obviously.
they had just about anything.
Everything you needed.
Just about anything you needed, yes. At the one, he used to went to, it was owned by Emma Fox, was the one that and they had just about anything you needed. There wasn't too much we had to go someplace else for. And we didn't get to go to town very often. Marshall was big stuff to us. And maybe at Christmas time, and once might go to Terre Haute at Christmas time. Wow. And,
When you went to the Clarksville store there, do you have particular memories of how things were located and arranged in that store?
I don't remember. They had a big counter there, and you just go up and tell him what you wanted, and then he'd fill the order for you. And he would go get all the groceries and fill the order for you.
So you didn't go out and pick your own
No.
cans or boxes?
No, he did. No, he would have it all. You'd go up and tell him what you wanted, and then he would, Mr. Fox would go fill it for you.
So your house was out here west of Clarksville?
Yes.
How did you get into Clarksville?
My dad had an old car. Don't ask me what kind. I don't remember. One time, it was an old 35 Ford, but he had something older than that when I was real little. But I couldn't tell you what kind it was. I don't remember. But, I went to a one-room schoolhouse out at West Liberty.
West Liberty?
And it was about a mile that we probably walked to go to West Liberty. I went there actually until the last semester of my 8th grade, and that's when we went to North Center. And because we were the first class to graduate from North Center. We went there about the last semester. And of course, by that time, we had school buses, so we could get on the school bus instead of walk. Wow. And my older siblings went to Westfield High School, but by the time I was in high school, they had put us in Martinsville District. So we went to Martinsville.
Those days in West Liberty, one-room school, can you kind of tell us a little bit about it, maybe the way you remember or what you remember, maybe your teacher's name?
I had different ones. The one I'm thinking of right now is Mabel Parashaw. I had her, she was there, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years maybe that I had her. It was kind of interesting. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but it kind of bothers me now. I got a lot of teachers in my family, but when these teachers say, well, we don't have time to teach the kids this, we don't even have time to teach them cursive. Excuse me, they're teaching one grade, maybe 20 at the most probably 20 students. In the one-room schoolhouse, sometimes they had 20 students, all 8 grades. So look at the number of preparations they had to do for all 8 grades. And they still had time to teach us how to read and write. That bothers me. Probably shouldn't say it, but I'm saying it.
Did you find that as you, let's just say in the 3rd grade, and there was maybe some 8th or 7th graders up here reciting, did you listen in and perhaps pick up and learn things from
sure.
the upper grades?
Oh, sure you did. Yes, you did. Very, very much. You learned.
Kind of natural osmosis, I guess.
Yeah, you learned what they were talking about sometimes, but you still learned to concentrate and do what you were supposed to do. And I mean, it was, and actually every year at Christmas time, we'd always put on a Christmas program. So we were getting, what do you call it, a drama class or whatever. We learned that in the spring and in the fall. Sometimes we'd take a walk out to the woods. So we got little field trips, and it was fun. We had a lot of fun.
And I know in that school you did not have cafeteria service. You didn't have a refrigerated drinking fountain.
No.
But you survived pretty well, didn't you?
Oh yes, there was water there, so you always had water, and we had outside toilets, one for the boys and one for the girls. Nobody had any problem with which one they ought to go to. They knew.
Do you recall what Mom fixed you up as a lunch to take along with you?
Well, she made a lot of jelly. We had jelly, apple butter. Sometimes she'd make biscuits, and she used to make I think she called it a jelly roll cake. I always liked that. She put that in our lunches, and it was okay. Wasn't fancy, but it was food.
Tasty.
Yeah, it was good.
Do you remember what you did at recess?
We played different games. I can't think. Sometimes a lot of them like to play softball. Sometimes we played that. And other times we played some kind of game. I can't even remember. We played handy over. They had like a coal shed there, so we could get the ball over that. Played that. Hide and seek, and I don't know, just other little games. And sometimes you just kind of palled around with your friends.
Do you recall what kind of playground equipment you had, if any? Were there some swings or a merry-go-round or teeter-totters?
There was merry-go-round. I don't recall. Just a merry-go-round, that's all I remember.
Okay.
I don't recall anything else.
You know, there sure weren't many things like you see in the playgrounds today.
Oh, no. We didn't have those at all. We had to kind of think up our own.
Sure.
But we could use our imaginations, and we always had fun.
And you used a thing in the classroom, I know, called a blackboard.
Oh, yes. We would go up to the blackboard, and sometimes the teacher had things written there for you, but other times you were sent up there to do some of your work at the blackboard, yes. Uh-huh.
And you said you did walk to school?
Yes.
To West Liberty?
Yes.
What kind of heating system did they have?
It was a great big old, goodness, it almost looked, I don't know, furnace, big round stove, and they burned coal in it. And the teacher would get there early and have the stove going by the time the students arrived. And so it was always warm.
Did you at any point ride a bicycle to school, or did
Yes,
you always walk?
we had. Now, of course, like you say, there's lots of us, but we only had one bicycle. The boys would get the bicycle.
Oh,
The girls didn't get the bicycle, but we could ride it. They'd let us girls ride it. But yeah, sometimes we rode the bicycle.
so if it was raining or snowing, you just got wet, right?
Right. Yes, and it could get pretty chilly by the time you get there sometimes. Yes.
So you said you were there up and through your 8th grade, and then you went to North Center, which was north of Martinsville, northeast. Was that a mammoth change?
I don't recall necessarily as it being. We were with, of course, consolidated several of the one-room schools. So there was just then 2 classes. And when I went, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think we had the 7th and 8th grades in the room I was in.
When you first started, yeah.
When we first started. And so you learned and got acquainted with different teachers and new students, but it wasn't anything, it was just kind of a nice, something new.
But as I recall, they had running water, and they did have inside washrooms and stuff.
They had inside.
And they had a furnace system, so okay.
Yeah, that was a big change from the.
Right uptown, then up to date.
Oh yeah, we big stuff.
Did you have Homer Hendricks as a teacher, your 8th grade?
Who?
Homer Hendricks?
Yes, he was very good, very good. I learned a lot under him. Just the last semester, but he was a very good teacher.
Very stern, as I recall, too.
Well, yeah, he didn't want to, but for the most part, we up in North Center, we were good kids anyway. We didn't cause a lot of problems. So I don't remember anybody really being a problem.
And you had a bus then at that point too to take you to school?
The bus?
You had a bus, school buses were running then?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was that a big experience or a big change for you?
Oh, it was nice. We didn't have to walk out in the rain and the snow. And yeah, we enjoyed it. And there again, I'm talking about the singing. Me and Shirley liked to sing. We'd get on that bus. We'd sing all the way to school. Then we'd sing all the way home. I guess they never did tell us to be quiet, so I guess they enjoyed it too.
And you mentioned liking to sing at home too. Did you have a piano there or just use the radio?
Yes, we had a piano. That's another thing. I can play the piano by ear. I cannot read music. And so playing the piano, I still do that some. It's a big thing. And at Christmas time, my family, as long as Mom and Daddy was here, everybody came home at Christmas. And we'd have a big Christmas dinner. And then we'd all gather in and sing Christmas carols. And I'm at the piano, and somebody would just call out what one they wanted to sing, and I'd just start playing it. And we would just play, and sing Christmas carols. And in fact, one of my nieces just the other night was talking, said how much she missed that. And so does my sisters, that was a big thing. And now some of the others, I think my sister Evelyn played a little bit, and of course my niece Janet is very good, but it was up to me to play the Christmas carols, and nobody had any music. They'd just call out what song they wanted to sing, no matter which one it was. I just
so
take
did
off.
any of your other family take music lessons? You said you didn't read my music.
No, no, nobody took music lessons. We lived way out in the country, no place. And a large family really didn't have money for music lessons, and no way to get there if we did.
So you were elected, huh?
So somehow, I don't know, God just gave me that talent to do that. So, so I would play the piano, and we'd all get around, and everybody would sing.
As I recall, it was in Homer Hendricks' room. There was a large upright piano there. Did you play at anything at school?
I don't remember playing anything at school.
I remember.
At the one-room school, West Liberty, a time or two at Christmas time I played something. But I don't remember at North Center. I don't think I did. I don't recall that I did. No.
I remember playing that one a few times,
Yeah.
way back then.
Yeah.
With the memories of North Center, what year did you graduate from
From North Center.
North Center then?
Oh, I've got to think. Well, it must have been 1950. Must have been 1950. I graduated from high school in 54, so the 8th grade, yeah, 1950.
So you left then the North Center School and went to Martinsville High School?
Martinsville High School, yes. All 4 years at Martinsville. I graduated in 54.
What did you think of the old school coming down?
Well, I kind of hated to see it go. I thought it was pretty from the outside. I thought it was a pretty school. And when it came down, I thought, well, West Liberty was gone, North Center was gone by then, and so was Martinsville. So I guess I just learned everything they had to tell us. They may as well tear them all down. No, I hated when they had to tear it down. I thought it was a
Do
pretty
you have some favorite memories of Martinsville High School?
Mrs. Harden. How can you forget Mrs. Harden? She was a very good school, very, very good teacher, and I liked Mrs. Harden. I liked. Never did like Mr. Trueblood, but he taught world history, and I loved world history.
Let's see, his first name was Lindsay, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the truth. I didn't dislike the man, but he wasn't my favorite, let's put it that way. Well, for one thing, I could never get an A out of him. He was the only teacher. I was almost straight A's, but he would never give me an A. Yeah, Mrs. Harden, and then mostly, I guess, just, like I say, going on the school bus, and Shirley and I, we was real good friends, and we
So at taking the bus home and back to school, were you able to participate in any extracurricular activities or anything?
Not too much, because it was kind of hard to get there. I was in the junior class play. I was in that, but not too much. I was in what was it called? FHA, I think it was, the Future Homemakers of America, and went to a few things that they had, but not much else extracurricular. No.
Okay, you mentioned Mrs. Harden. You had her for English, I assume.
Yeah, and Latin.
And Latin?
I don't remember much of it. I made good grades while I was there.
What kind of putting on the other end of the scale? That was obviously a subject that you kind of liked. Did you have some that you really didn't like?
Yeah, I do not like, I'm not a science person. I took general science and that was it. I wasn't about to take biology. They told me you had to play with mice to do that, and I wasn't about to take that.
No.
But I wasn't interested in science. I liked English, the grammar. I enjoyed grammar, the structure of the sentences and all of that, and I liked the business classes, typing. I liked typing, and I think I took shorthand too. And people nowadays may not even know what shorthand is, but I could probably still write my name in it. That's about it.
Do you remember who you had for typing and shorthand?
Mrs. Manwaring, I believe.
Okay.
Mrs. Manwaring.
Yeah, I remember she was there. Kind of going back a little bit to home and then through school, did you have some particular hobbies? Now, obviously, music was one of your, quote, hobbies, I would say. But did you have some other hobbies that you may have had as a childhood and might even still have today?
Mostly, I guess, and actually, reading is one of my hobbies now, and I actually didn't read that much as a kid. I guess I didn't dislike it, I just didn't do a lot of it. Well, for one thing, I suppose we didn't have that many books at home to read, but mostly the music, singing, and the music is probably mostly what I still do. And I still sometimes go out to the nursing home. Our church does a monthly birthday party out there at Burnsides, and that young lady wants me whenever I can, and I'll go out and play some music for them while they have that party. So I still do that, and I'm in singing Sam's. We go around singing at the nursing homes.
Keeps that hobby alive then.
So I still enjoy that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
With graduating from high school, I believe you said 1954?
54, uh-huh.
What happened then?
Well, I went out to Omaha, Nebraska for, I don't know,
Wow.
sort of it was about 3 months, sort of a advanced business course like. We learned different things. One of the things that we learned was airline reservations and also teletype. And nowadays it's not even in existence, but it's called ticker tape.
It's called what?
Ticker tape.
Oh, yeah.
You've heard of ticker tape parades out in New York. The ticker tape, it was about an inch wide. And when you typed on that, it made like little holes. That's the way they did messages. I learned to read that ticker tape. I can't now, but
It's a challenge.
but I learned that. But after I went through that, I took a job went to Washington, D.C. and worked for the Navy Department. I wasn't out there very long. I got homesick and came back home. But, well, my sister was with me. I was fine as long as she was out there. But she came home to marry a hometown guy. She was older than me. And I didn't like being out there all by myself. So, but I worked for the Navy Department for, I don't know, 6 or 7 months, something like that, about a term. And then I came back. Then I got a job. I was working for the telephone office. I was a telephone operator. So
Here in Marshall?
Started here in Marshall, yes.
Excuse me.
I worked at the telephone office for several years. Then I was married in 1958, April of 1958. No name. I'm not going to talk about it. No name. Okay. But I was married in 1958. And we moved to Arkansas. And then my son was born in March of '59. And when he was 6 weeks old, I came back to Marshall and started working at the telephone office again. And my husband at that time transferred to Indiana State. And I continued working. And he went to Indiana State. And when he got his bachelor's, and I say I earned my PhD, parentheses, put hubby through, parentheses, he doesn't like that. But I did, because I was the breadwinner. Then I could finally start the career that I loved and really wanted, and that was being a full-time mother, stay-at-home mom. My daughter was born in November of 62. And then I had another daughter in June of 64. During that time, before my daughter was born, we had moved over in Indiana. And from then on, we moved a lot. We, over near, close to Sanford, Indiana, was where we were when the girls were born. Then we moved to Evansville for a year. Then we moved to Bloomington for, I think it was 3 years. Then we moved back to Evansville for a year. And then I moved to St. Louis. And then while I was in St. Louis, we parted ways. And then I decided to move back to Marshall. I had 3 kids to raise, and I wanted to move back to the small town.
Something to be said for that.
And it was closer to the grandparents, relatives, my parents and the other grandparents. And so I came back to Marshall in 76.
Okay.
In 1976. And of course, then tragedy struck. In December the, I think the 13th, Mom and Daddy were killed. Both of them were killed in an automobile accident. We had a double funeral.
Excuse me.
That was a very difficult time.
Oh, sure.
Very difficult time. And, but then I worked for Indiana State. I got a job there. And I worked there, I don't know whether it was a year or something like that.
What department did you work in there?
At Indiana State, gosh, I can't think of the name of it. It was, I couldn't tell you what. I can't think of the name of that department now. When people had seminars and things like that, we would set up for those kinds of things, and I can't think what they called it, but we would set up, people would register for these things. We would do the registration and set up whatever kind of things it is they needed. Sometimes they had meals. We had to arrange for that, and but I can't think of the name of the department, what they called it.
Have you looked around that school and that campus when you go over there anymore?
It doesn't look a thing like it did back then. It's amazing.
Sure doesn't.
It's amazing. And then I got a chance to go back to being a telephone operator at Terre Haute, for GTE at Terre Haute. And so then I worked at GTE as a telephone operator for, I don't know, several years. And then I got, my kids was all graduated by then, and I got a chance to transfer to Fort Wayne, still with GTE. I stayed with GTE. And I went there. I was secretary to the manager of the buildings, fleet, and energy of the 2-state area. So I was up there about, I was in Fort Wayne about 4 years, I guess. But my heart's back here. I was a long ways from home. And so then there was a opening in the division manager's office back in Terre Haute. So I came back to Terre Haute for, worked in the division manager's office for about, I think, 4 years. Of course, there's always downsizing, and they were downsizing, and they decided to move that to Lafayette, and they was going to eliminate my position. So I transferred then, still with GTE, to Richmond, Indiana. So I worked at Richmond, Indiana for 3 years. And when I lived in Richmond, basically I commuted. I came home every weekend.
You had a good direct route out there.
Oh, I know all about I-70, clear across Indiana. And then they were still downsizing, like they were at that time, and so they were offering a early retirement package, which I qualified for. And due to the fact that I had ill health at that time, I decided to retire early. I had leukemia, and I was in very poor health at that time, and so I thought I'd take advantage of the early retirement. So I retired from GTE, and
what year was that, Lois?
that was in December of '93.
Okay.
And so then, after several months of much needed rest, I decided to try working again. And so I got a job as a receptionist in a lawyer's office. And so I worked, I think around 5 years, something like that, as a receptionist in a lawyer's office. And then I retired completely. But by that time, during the time I was at the lawyer's office, I took chemotherapy, and thanks to God and good doctors, I am now in remission. So I feel better now than I did. There's no comparison. I feel so much better now than I did 25 years ago. I mean, there's just no comparison. I never thought I'd feel this good again. So I give God glory for that.
I guess Lois is a youngster, and I have occasion, I don't remember what it was, to go into the telephone office here. And I was so fascinated with all of those wires and plugs, and it was a noise because there was answering and stuff all the time. Was there a lot of training needed to get where those plugs went, and what to do?
Yeah, there was a lot of training in that, and you had to learn. You could not, no matter what your customer said to you, you had to be nice and polite. And some of them could be pretty nasty. Pretty nasty. But you had to learn, you know, and well, actually, when we were here in Marshall, the operators were the ones who if there was a fire,
yes,
then operators notified the firemen of a fire. And so you had to learn to stay cool under some, you know, you couldn't.
So really, that office was like a 911 office, wasn't it? I mean, if there's a disaster or fire.
Yeah, if there was emergency or something like that, that was probably where, you know, they would call that, and then you would try to get them to the police we did not take police calls, but, you know, if somebody called in and said, you know, okay, we connect you with the police, but we did, if there was a fire, we notified the firemen.
Now, I remember my uncle and aunt living in the country, and their phone line was, I think, one long and two shorts or something like that.
The party lines. Mm-hmm.
Did you know that at the phone office, or when you dialed them or directed the call there, that was an automatic thing, or?
No. If it wasn't on your line, I mean, you know, you had so many
party
people on
lines.
The party line. I mean, you know, if you were calling somebody else on your line, you didn't have to go to the operator. But if you were out here and you wanted somebody on a different party line, then the operator did it for you. They rang him for you. Yes.
So did they have a list of what those like the long one long and two shorts. John Doe, that was his call. I guess you surely didn't have to remember all of those.
That's a good question because now I don't remember.
I guess that was always something I just couldn't. I guess it was such a busy place. It just didn't really impressed me.
There had to be some way we knew, and you know that particular because it went to where you did dial not too long after I was working there, and I don't remember how we knew I really don't remember that part.
And I think all long distance calls came through an operator.
Oh yes, all long distance calls.
Even the ones in town.
All long distance calls. I mean, you know, if you Terre Haute, Paris, that was long distance in. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Would you care to go back to that type of work environment?
It wasn't bad. Sometimes I think it beats what we have now with all this technology.
It's scary.
It kind of gets me, you know, with all this technology, because we were not allowed to tell anything that we happened to overhear.
And I'm sure you heard a lot.
Well, sometimes you heard more than you wanted.
I'm sure.
But, you know, you didn't listen in on calls. But then you did hear certain things sometimes. But we were not allowed to, you could lose your job over that.
Well, I'm sure.
Yeah. And nowadays, with all this open stuff, it's just out there and everybody does it. What happened to privacy? So that kind of amazes me now that they've lost a lot of the privacy that.
But yet the younger generation, they put it right out there themselves on the internet and Facebook and all that stuff.
Facebook. I don't know. I guess I'm more private. I don't want everybody to know everything I'm doing.
With the involvement in living in several different towns, has there been a particular person or an individual who you really say influenced you a great deal?
Well, probably, I would say my parents.
Okay.
I can't, more than anybody else. The way they raised us, the character and the values and morals that they instilled in me, that's the most, I can't, more than anybody else. So my parents, they didn't send us to church, they took us to church, and they lived it. And you just don't get much better than that, I don't think. So,
has there been a world event that really is indelible in your memory?
I would say probably the assassination of John Kennedy and landing on the moon. Mm-hmm. That's the two that jumps out at me right now. Mm-hmm.
And technology keeps changing and changing all the time. It's kind of almost scary. We've got all of these modern conveniences and things around us. Is there something you'd say, gosh, I just could not live without that?
Well, I wouldn't want to live without a telephone, and I'm talking about the telephone landlines. I've got one of those cell phones, and I never hear it when it goes off anyway. So, but I wouldn't want to do without. I wouldn't want to do without the telephone, and at least a radio. Television. I like television, except there's nothing on it worth watching nowadays. but you do need something to know what's going on in the world. So television and radio, I would not want to do without them. All this other, I'm not up on all this other technology, so it doesn't bother me.
You can live without it, in other words.
I'm living without it. I know that's the way the younger generation communicate, but I kind of like to hear the voice.
And it always, I really say it bothers me when you see all these kids going down the street and they're not even conversing, talking to anyone. They're too busy with texting.
Yes, that bothers me, and I'm just old-fashioned enough, I guess, that I think that they need more social interaction, and I also think that they aren't left to use their imagination. They need, it's like, they don't have to learn anything. They don't have, it's on the calculator, so they don't have to learn the multiplication tables and this and that. And let me see. And everything, if there wasn't a computer, they wouldn't know what to do. And I think they may have good imaginations technology-wise, but just plain, even just playing the toys that they have nowadays, I think they need to let the child just kind of imagine things. I mean, we didn't have any. We had fun, but we could have a good time with a little bit of nothing. We used to take an old tire that a wagon or a tire that was run out. We'd just roll that tire a little bit of every place and we'd have a big time rolling that tire everywhere. Nobody else, I don't suppose, had any fun with it, but we did.
And kids today would look at a tire and say, well, what's that old thing doodling in there?
Oh, what could I do with that?
Had no concept at all of anything to do.
And
I think that's unfortunate.
And I feel like we may be squelching a child's creativity by not letting them just pick up something and have fun with it. I may be old-fashioned, but that's how I feel about it.
Oh, I do too. And you look at all of these mechanical toys and stuff, and what a kid gets for Christmas, my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
And what did they end up playing with? The cardboard box it came out of.
That's true. That's true. And,
oh my!
And I think it's good for them too, because they could just imagine all kinds of things with this cardboard box. And we had little trucks, or sometimes we'd take just an old lid, and boy, we'd run all over that farm, and that old lid drove us everywhere. We made our own noise.
And you've had kind of an interesting life, and you've lived a lot of different places. Is there a segment in there or something you say, oh gosh, it might be kind of nice to go back and relive that part?
No. I like, I've had good times and bad times, but no, there's nothing I'm going to change. Life's good.
Good to hear. That's a nice comment. If you were, say, traveling and you ended up in London, England somewhere, or somewhere away from here, and you said, I'm from Marshall, Illinois, and a person looked at you and said, what's that all, where's that? What's that all about? What would you tell them about Marshall and why it might be a good place to visit?
That's interesting, because we did go to London.
Okay.
Now, my family, we took a family trip. Can't remember what, I think that was 96. I'm not sure about that. There's about 19 of us, brothers and sisters, in-laws, and nieces and nephews.
I think Janet mentioned that.
Pardon?
Was she on that trip? Janet Haston?
Well, she didn't go.
Okay.
Janet did, her kids did.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I thought she had mentioned that.
Yes. We went back to England, to where the first Eubank came from. Wow. And we met some Eubanks there, and went to the parish where the first Eubank came from, whenever he came from England. And it was very nice. We had our own bus, the bus driver and a guide, and it was all family on that bus. There was nobody else, just us. It was really a nice trip. Janet and John didn't go. Lady Bell and Wayne D went, her mother and dad, and they took all 4 of their grandchildren. So the grandchildren, Janet's daughters went, but Janet didn't go on that. But and then one Eubank cousin and his wife went with us. But it was a family thing, and it was marvelous. We had a real good time.
What part of England was the family vacation?
It was near Thirsk, up in Yorkshire.
Okay.
In Yorkshire, near Thirsk. Actually, you've probably heard of James Herriot. Is that the one that's
What?
James Herriot, the author that? What's the name of that? He was a veterinarian, and he's author, written those books. Can't think of the name of the books now.
I can't either, but I think I know who you mean.
But we saw his office because his veterinarian office was there in Thirsk. That was I read those books, and so we asked our waitress. Oh yeah, she said it's just down the street. She said I took my cat to see him. So we did. He wasn't in office at that time, but we did go by and see that office, which was interesting. And but what would I say? Well, basically, I would probably say, well, it's just a small town. It's just right on the just right on the Indiana line, and of course in London they wouldn't. I-70 wouldn't mean anything to them, but
I knew where that was.
but on the right along the interstate, and it's just a little small rural community, which is very friendly, and just I think a nice place to live.
You mentioned earlier when you were young, you very seldom came to Marshall because that was a big venture. Mm-hmm. Now that you've lived here, do you go back to any memories that you may have had at Marshall and said, boy, that's really changed or that hasn't changed? And kind of comparison of your early childhood memories versus today?
Mm. Mostly is the fact that back when I was a kid, they had all these different stores, and now then you have to go to Walmart to get anything. You know, they had a hardware store, you know, and well, like we do still have another drugstore, but they had the drugstore and the hardware store, and they had a couple of the hedges, you know, the clothes and things like that, and mostly, I guess, maybe the small business, small mom and pop businesses, maybe. I don't know whether that's what you would call them or not, but those smaller businesses. And now then, you know, there's a few, but really, basically, you have to go to Walmart to get everything.
And that's not just Marshall. That seems to be
that's everywhere.
Typical of just about everywhere.
Yeah, it's changed like that. Yeah, and that is good, and you know, it's nice in some ways, but you don't get the personal help and attention that you got whenever at the smaller stores, family-owned stores and things. Yeah.
Lois, it's been a delight visiting with you. And this implies is oral history. And it's not for today or tomorrow, but somewhere out there, someone's going to read this or listen to it and say, gee, I didn't know that about Lois.
And of course, I'm proud of my children. I have 3 children and 5 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren.
Okay.
And right now, all of them live pretty close.
That's
One of them just moved to Chicago. She had been in Terre Haute. She just moved to Chicago. But most of them around close. And family is very important to me. And
Well, you've certainly had a long history of family, all the way from your grandparents, parents, and now some of your children.
And and we still, at Christmas time, is still important to us. Grandma still plays the piano, and we sing those Christmas carols, well, we always went back to my mom's on Christmas Day. So to start a tradition in my own home, I started on Christmas Eve. I fix a candlelight dinner, and so we have a
Nice.
big candlelight dinner, and we, of course, all get together and we sing our carols, and we read the Bible story of Jesus' birth, and then Grandma has to read "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" to whoever the little ones are, and then we have our.
Do you set the
gift.
menu, or does someone else do that?
No, I decide what. It's usually the same thing. They've got certain things that they
Sure.
like, so they expect them, and now that they're older, that they're adults, why they bring things too. But yeah, basically, I set the menu and decide what. Yeah.
Great. Well, as I say, this has been so much fun, and you filled in some things that I didn't know about your family, and I think this is the whole purpose of it, that it's there for people in the future to see and read and listen to, and we just appreciate your time so much of taking it out of the day to be with us.